Elon Musk, you definitely know the name. I mean, the headlines are constant, right? Tesla, SpaceX, X. He's called a visionary, a real-life Iron Man, and yeah, one of the wealthiest people on the entire planet. But behind that huge persona, there's a story of just extreme risk, of near total failure, and an almost unbelievable will to keep going. So today, we're going to dig into the real story, a wild journey of insane gambles that built the empire we all see today. It feels like his entire life plays out in public, but as one documentary puts it, the man himself is still a total enigma. So we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit, piece together the story of how a kid from South Africa became, well, a global force of nature.
All right, so every story has a beginning, and Musk's doesn't start in some Silicon Valley garage. It starts way back in Pretoria, South Africa. This is really where the seeds of his ambition, his intellect, and that relentless drive were planted.
Now, what's really interesting here is how early you can see his key traits showing up. I mean, at just 12 years old, he's not just playing video games, he's coding and selling one called Blastar for $500. Think about that. Then, by 17, he makes this huge strategic move to Canada. Yeah, partly to avoid military service under apartheid, but also to get closer to the United States, which he already saw as the place where everything was happening. After grabbing degrees in both physics and economics, he lands right in the middle of Silicon Valley just as the internet boom is about to explode. The stage was perfectly set. This brings us to his first couple of big wins. And this wasn't about colonizing Mars, not yet, anyway. This was about cashing in on the digital gold rush and getting the capital he needed to fund his really, really wild dreams. So he jumps on two huge internet trends right away. First, with Zip2, he and his brother create this kind of online city guide for newspapers. Think of it like a super early Google Maps. This was pure startup grit. I mean, they were sleeping in the office, showering at the YMCA, the whole deal. But wow, did it pay off? They sold it to Compaq for over $300 million. And what does he do? He immediately rolls that into X.com, this incredibly ambitious plan for online banking. That eventually merged with a rival to become the PayPal we all know. And then, in 2002, eBay came knocking and bought PayPal for a staggering $1.5 billion. And this just shows you the scale of that win. As PayPal's largest shareholder, Musk's personal cut from that sale was just over $175 million. He was barely 31 years old. For almost anyone else on Earth, this is the end of the story. You won. You're set for life. But for Musk, this was just the entry fee. So seriously, what do? Do you buy an island? Retire forever? Well, not if you're Elon Musk. Instead of cashing out and living the easy life, he decided to bet everything, and I mean everything, he had just made on ideas that most people thought were complete science fiction. And this is where the story gets absolutely insane. This is the part where he takes his entire fortune and pushes all of it into the middle of the table on two unbelievably difficult industries, bringing himself to the absolute edge of financial ruin. You know, it's really hard to overstate how nuts this looked at the time. He sinks $100 million of his own money into starting SpaceX with the goal of making humanity a multi-planetary species. Okay. Then he puts millions more into this tiny, struggling electric car startup called Tesla. Back then, private space companies and electric cars were basically jokes. They were considered graveyards for investment money. By 2008, the dream was turning into an absolute nightmare. At SpaceX, the first rocket exploded. The second one failed. And, you guessed it, the third one failed too. Each launch was a multi-million-dollar fireball, and with every single failure, money and credibility were just evaporating. They had just enough parts left for one final try. And, as if that wasn't bad enough, at the exact same time, the global economy completely collapses. The 2008 financial crisis hits, and Tesla, which was already bleeding cash, was suddenly staring down total bankruptcy. Both of his companies, his entire fortune, his whole reputation, it was all about to be wiped out at the same time. So how do you even deal with that? According to people who were right there in the trenches with him, like former SpaceX employee Thomas Mueller, Musk has this almost inhuman ability to just absorb pain and stress. While everyone else saw total ruin, he just kept plowing forward against what looked like impossible odds. And that insane resilience led to one of the most stunning turnarounds in modern business history. I mean, from the absolute brink of total failure, Musk somehow managed to snatch victory right from the jaws of defeat. The comeback for SpaceX was like something out of a movie. So after those three crushing failures, they scraped together that fourth and final rocket. September 2008, it launches, and it successfully reaches orbit. It was a historic moment. And just a couple of months later, because of that one success, NASA awards SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract. That didn't just save the company, it was a total game changer.
Tesla's comeback was just as much of a nail-biter. Musk literally plowed his very last personal dollars into the company just to keep the lights on through the 2008 crisis. Then came the Model S, a car that completely flipped the script. It proved electric cars could be beautiful, fast, and something people actually wanted. From there, Tesla's rise was just meteoric. It became the most valuable car company in the world and basically forced the entire auto industry to finally get serious about electric.
And that brings us to today. Musk is no longer just a CEO. He's a global figure whose actions and even his words can move markets, influence politics, and really shape the future of technology for every single one of us. To put his success into perspective, just look at this number. Projections estimate his net worth could hit figures around $852 billion in the coming years, making him the wealthiest person in the world, and not by a little. This isn't just rich, it's a level of financial power that is almost unheard of in human history. And all that wealth is funding a slate of companies with missions that, let's be honest, sound like science fiction. He's not just building cars or rockets. He's trying to make humanity multiplanetary, transition the whole world to sustainable energy, create brain-computer interfaces, and solve city traffic with tunnels. The sheer scope of it all is just staggering. Of course, when you have that much influence, you're going to create a deeply divided public image. To a lot of people, he's the ultimate visionary, the real-life Iron Man, pushing us all forward. But to his critics, he's this controversial figure, an unelected superpower, whose impulsive behavior and aggressive style deserve a ton of scrutiny. And you know what? Both of those views are pretty well grounded in the facts of his career. And that really brings us to the big question that people keep asking. Is he a true visionary who's going to lead us into a new technological age? Or, as some critics claim, is he a false prophet selling snake oil? The story is still being written, but one thing is absolutely certain. His impact on our world is undeniable, and his journey is one of the most compelling stories of our time.